Welcome to Edison Open House Space 2022. In this session, we're highlighting AAC Clyde Space. It's a company which specialises in small satellite technologies and services that enable business, government and academia to access high quality data from space. And with me is its CEO, Luis Gomez. Luis, how nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Vivian. Good morning.
Now, you're a leader in nano satellites and small sat subsystems. What projects underpin the future technologies you can offer and allow you to access new applications?
So we are working on several new capabilities. So this is about, what we are doing is about helping companies and organizations to manage the planet and to support life on Earth, on the day-to-day life. So we are working increasingly in things that are related to climates, like weather monitoring, weather prediction, but also looking at farming, looking how we can actually improve yields for crops on Earth, and also looking, for instance, at maritime situational awareness, so that we can manage our oceans, manage our ships are moving around the ocean, but also looking for illegal fishing, illegal activities. So effectively, what we are doing is creating a network of satellites, a constellation of satellites that will be able to support activities here on Earth, particularly in the context of changing climate, changing environment.
And the importance of this is that it's timely data. It's instant. It doesn't rely on reporting that's old. It's right there and in real time.
Exactly. The big change that smaller spacecraft, smaller satellites have brought to this domain is the fact that we can do a lot more of them. They are cheaper to build, cheaper to launch, much easier to operate. So we can operate them in large constellations, and so we can have satellites in many places at the same time. Now, this is something we couldn't do in the past. We had one big, expensive satellite, can only be in one place at one time. Now we can have hundreds of these satellites, and so they are continuously monitoring the entire globe in real time.
Now, you mentioned these big constellations, but what features of your model allow you to compete with the mega constellations that SpaceX and OneWeb and other operators are now putting out there?
You don't need mega constellations for everything. Actually, from an environmental perspective, you want to minimize the number of satellites you put in space. We want to create as little space debris as possible. It's not just about the fact that we've got space debris in orbit. These satellites will re-enter at some point, and we don't want to overload our atmosphere with satellites burning down, coming down. So we want to minimize the number of satellites that we can use. So we can actually mix and match many payloads and instruments on the same satellite, and that way we actually need fewer constellations. So our objective is always to be able to actually deliver these real-time data with as few satellites as we can. So what our technology is very much about mixing and matching, is using the synergies of different payloads and different instruments on the same satellites, and that way keeping the numbers low, and also focusing on some applications that need fewer satellites. There are certain things that probably are better done by using ground networks, but there are other things that we can only do from space, and those are the ones we should focus on.
So definitely a quality rather than quantity model.
Yes, I like to think so. This is about optimizing our designs, optimizing what we are doing, to actually deliver the product that people need. And that way, actually, yes, look for quality rather than quantity.
Now, you've significantly expanded the group over the last 18 months, and there are three particular acquisitions, Hyperion, SpaceQuest and Omnisys. Tell me about your strategy there and how you think that they enhance your group.
So part of the strategy was about improving our vertical integration in the build of satellites. So we needed some extra capabilities that we didn't have in the group for certain key technologies for our satellites, for our platforms. So we acquired some companies like Hyperion, for instance, for that reason. Also because they bring some new technologies for future, so like laser communications. In other cases, we grew because we were looking for specific capabilities for the future in terms of the product we deliver. So Omnisys in Sweden we acquired because they develop very high technology or high technology driven weather forecasting instruments. And that is something that we see as required for the future for our data services. At the same time, for instance, in the US with SpaceQuest, with the acquisition of SpaceQuest, was very much about developing our data acquisition and distribution capability. They have been doing that for several years. So our space data as a service business model require that extra knowledge and capability that they bring to the group. So it's for different reasons, but it's always about looking towards the future and looking what we need to grow our business.
Now, I'm particularly interested in your African subsidiary, which you began in 2021. Can you tell me a bit more about the opportunities there and the capabilities of the subsidiary?
So we have been looking for a long time into the African space market. It's a very fast growing, fast developing market. I've worked on it myself a few years back. And we looked at the amount of talent, particularly in South Africa, that has been grown out of South Africa is immense. So it made a lot of sense to actually tap into that talent, to be able to actually use that talent for the global ambition that we have as a company, and at the same time develop a capability to address the specific needs of the larger African market. So having a base in Africa will help us. And at the same time, it allows us to actually bring that technology and that capability that has been developed there to the rest of the world. And so selling from South Africa, building a business there, while, as I say, at the same time developing solutions for the African market. That is probably the ideal market for space. You're talking about a large continent with huge potential, also large challenges. And space offers that kind of large scale monitoring services that can be used in a continental way, and that way help to develop Africa. So it's a great opportunity for us, and that's why we started that company, and we see a great future for it in the coming years.
And you're seeing a lot of leapfrogging, aren't you, in terms of particularly communications technologies in Africa?
Yes.
Where actually you've got a blank slate to start off with, and so there's huge opportunities to develop completely new approaches. Yes. It's so interesting. But let's move on to your roadmap and investment to require to drive your revenues to what's expected $50 million in 2024 and $250 million by 2030.
Mm-hmm. So we are seeing that is in two main areas. So there is the continued growth of our hardware business, so selling components and subsystems for satellites. We are seeing that this expanding number of satellites being launched need more power systems, more computers, more solar panels. So we are seeing a growth on all of those areas. And also what we call turnkey missions. So there are more people buying satellites, and we continue to sell more satellites. And that sector, that part of our business continues to grow nicely. It is a steady growth that we are seeing, and we expect that to continue. Where we see a great opportunity, and particularly when we look into 2030, a great part of our revenues will come from our expanding service and data business. So we are seeing more and more demand for data and information from space, particularly related to the areas I mentioned earlier in terms of weather forecasting, agriculture, forestry, ocean management. So all these areas are demanding more information, more services, and we have been focusing on these. So we are developing data services and information services around these sectors. And we are seeing much more demand for data. So what we are doing is building our own constellation, using our technology, using our instruments and our satellites, and we are developing that constellation to provide those services. And you'll see an increasing percentage of our business will come from that. So now is a few percent. By 2024 will be about 40%. By 2030 it will be about 60%. And there we are seeing a big growth. And that's how we will achieve that growth rate.
And what kind of investment do you require?
So we require investment to actually build these spacecraft. We need to actually build the spacecraft. Depending on of course, the investment available, we can move much faster or we can move slower. So we can do it in a more organic way, where we are basically building based on the money we are getting, that we are earning, so we can actually build that constellation. Or if we have big investments for the next few years, we can actually build this constellation quite quickly.
Finally, this seems to be, well, it's always been an exciting area to be in space companies, but this seems to me at the moment to be a time when it's really, really vibrant and exploding. Is that your sense too?
It is. I think it is an area that is exploding because people need, as I say, more data and more information. Space has become very intrinsically linked to everything we do on Earth. And so this is a sector that is growing because of that. People see the need and feel the need for the information, connecting services, all these things that you need to do it in a global way. It's very difficult to do on a regional way. So space is the optimum vantage point. You are far away, you are in orbit, you can see the entire globe, you have access to everywhere and everything. That is quite difficult sometimes to do it on the ground. So you can do those things from space, and that has actually been an engine for developing the industry. And there's been a lot of investment coming onto the industry. There has been a lot of new business, a lot of new ideas coming into the industry over the last probably 10, 15 years. And it has been great to see that growth and that development.
Luis Gomez, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and what an exciting set of technologies and futures that you have ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.